Greetings and welcome to our bonus edition of our hashtag UA26 webinar series. My name is Kim Sterrett. I'm Director of Parent Family Programs, and it's my pleasure to welcome you and our invited guest. We're excited to have Erin Brooks here from Student Financial Aid, who will be walking you through all of the ins and outs of student financial aid. Many of you may have already completed your FAFSA, but the process is not done. So she'll have lots of steps that you and or your student might need to take over the next few months in order to be ready to go for the fall. So Erin, thanks so much for being here. We appreciate your time and expertise, and I'm going to hand it off to you and mute myself so that I don't bother you.
Well, thanks, Kim. So my name is Erin. I'm the coordinator of advising and information here at the Financial Aid Department at the University of Alabama. And we are going to talk about financing your student's education for the upcoming 22-23 academic year. So financing a college education is a partnership between the family, the school, and the government. Our office is here to provide general information, personal advising sessions, and any other assistance you may need while securing funding for education. First, we'll discuss some general information for federal student aid, and then we will get into some important dates and information when preparing for the upcoming 2022-2023 academic year. So the FAFSA for the 2022-2023 academic year is already open. It opened October 1st of 2021. So if you have not done so, go ahead and complete that application as soon as possible. The application can be found either through the My Student Aid app or studentaid.gov, and it is completely free to complete. To complete the FAFSA application, you'll need to create an FSA ID for the student and the parent. Once an FSA ID has been created for the student and the parent, you can go in and complete the application. And we do encourage the student and the parent to be involved in this process. It's important to note that this application does require tax documentation from 2 years prior to the application year. So for example, the 2022-2023 FAFSA application will use tax information from the 2020 tax year. One great tool the application provides is the IRS data retrieval tool. This tool will place your pertinent tax information directly onto the FAFSA from the IRS if you are eligible to use it. However, it will be worthwhile to have the student and parent's tax documentation handy in case you are ineligible to use the data retrieval tool. Before submitting your FAFSA, be sure to add the University of Alabama to your application. Our school code is 001051, which we have up on the screen for you. This is a quick way to ensure that you have added the correct institution. Finally, you want to make sure you carefully review your information before submitting. A FAFSA submitted with incorrect information could be flagged for verification. If selected, the verification process can delay your award from 3 to 4 weeks. So make sure you're reviewing everything as carefully as possible before you submit. And it's important to note that the FAFSA application is renewed every year. This is an annual application. The application will open every October 1st. That's a hard date. So every October 1st, you can go in and complete the application for the upcoming year. And we do urge all students to complete their applications as early as possible because some aid is quite limited. Once you have completed and submitted your FAFSA, UA receives the application results and will issue an award offer once all documentation is complete and correct. Please note that correspondence will generally be sent to the student's Crimson email address, and first-time freshmen can expect award notifications mailed to the permanent address on file with the University of Alabama. Eligibility is determined by the Department of Education using federal regulations that are established by Congress. Federal funds must be used for educational purposes, and primary eligibility requirements to receive federal aid through the FAFSA require students to be enrolled in taking classes in a degree-seeking program, be enrolled in at least half-time enrollment, be a U.S. citizen or eligible non-citizen, have a valid Social Security number, and maintain satisfactory academic progress requirements as defined by the University of Alabama undergraduate catalog. Now that we've discussed some basics of the FAFSA application, let's get into types of federal aid programs the student will be applying for when completing the FAFSA. These programs are federal loans, the work study program, and federal student loans. The first type of aid we'll talk about will be the grant programs eligible through the FAFSA application. Grants are gift aid that are not repaid. And when you fill out the FAFSA, you're applying for available federal grants as well as grants eligible through your state. There are two types of federal grants offered through the FAFSA application, the first being the federal Pell Grant. The Pell Grant is an entitlement program, which means any eligible student must receive these funds. The amount of Pell that is determined by a sliding scale that considers the numbers of hours a student is enrolled in each semester, as well as the expected family contribution, which is also called the EFC. The next grant we'll talk about is the Federal Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant, also referred to as the SEOG. The SEOG is awarded to all students that demonstrate greatest amount of financial need. The EFC must be 0 to be eligible for this grant. However, funds are extremely limited and are dispersed on a first come, first served basis. This is why we say it's important to get that FAFSA in as quickly as possible, because if you're eligible for these limited funds, we want to make sure we get them to you. Federal work study is also a limited funding opportunity, and not all students who are eligible will receive an offer. If federal work study is offered, the student is required to accept the program offer. All incoming federal work study students are required to attend the annual federal work study job fair held the first Thursday after classes begin for the fall term. During the job fair, students will be able to complete their I-9 verification process and explore the fair to visit with prospective employers. Once the I-9 verification process is complete, access to the Federal Work Study Job Board will be available. The Federal Work Study Job Board offers a variety of job listings, including but not limited to office assistants, tutoring assistants, accounting assistants, childcare assistants, research assistants, and library assistants. The student will locate any positions they are interested in and reach out to the supervisor using the listed email or phone number to discuss the position and schedule an interview. After the student has secured a position and completed the work study hire paperwork, the student will be paid via direct deposit biweekly through the University of Alabama payroll process for any hours worked. Rate of pay is dependent upon the position the student takes, but generally freshmen work up to 15 hours a week and can earn up to $2,278 for the academic year. The earned amount depends upon the numbers of hours worked each pay period. There are additional part-time job opportunities that are not work study positions that are available on campus, and you can find those positions at jld.ua.edu. Finally, we're going to talk about the federal direct loan system, which is the last type of aid offered through the FAFSA. These loans are offered to all students regardless of income, and the type of loan offered can depends upon the student's need. The first type of loan is a subsidized loan. Subsidized loans are classified as need-based aid, which means students with a particular need are eligible. Need is calculated by subtracting the student's expected family contribution, or EFC, from the total cost of attendance for the school. The important thing to note about subsidized loans is that they will not accrue interest while the student is enrolled in at least half time. The second type of loan offered through the federal student aid process is an unsubsidized loan. Unsubsidized loans are not considered need-based aid and will accrue interest even while the student is enrolled. Finally, annual loan limits are determined by classification, with first-year undergraduates receiving a maximum of $5,500 for the academic year, second-year undergraduate students receiving $6,500 for the academic year, and third-year and up undergraduate students will receive $7,500 for the academic year. These amounts are determined at the federal level and are not dependent upon the school. So you've submitted your FAFSA, you've received an award offer, and you're ready to look at your next steps. When preparing for fall, you'll want to consider your overall cost of attendance, anticipate when your bills are going to be posted, and then be ready for payment once the bills are due. For the University of Alabama, our cost of attendance will release around mid-June. Our bills will post about mid-July, and then the bills will be due in August before classes begin. The cost of attendance is determined by student financial aid to represent the estimated needs of the student at the University of Alabama for the academic year. These figures are used when determining eligibility for federal funding as well. This table shows in-state and out-of-state cost of attendance for the 2021-2022 academic year. These amounts reflect estimated costs for an entering freshman with full-time enrollment. The cost of attendance for the 2022-2023 academic year will be determined in June once our Board of Trustees determines tuition cost. However, we can use our current costs as a guide when considering funding for education. Your main cost will fall under items that are determined to be direct costs, such as tuition, room, and board. These will be the items that are directly charged to the student bill. The indirect costs are expenses that the student may accrue but are not directly billed to the university. And these will be dependent upon the family and up to the student as to how much they end up spending in these categories. Often student and parents will need additional options when supplementing the student's remaining expenses. Additional options can include scholarships, federal Parent Plus loan, and private educational loans. For any questions about scholarships, we do urge you to reach out to their department. They can be contacted at scholarships@ua.edu. Since we are a public institution, I can't give good guidance on private loans. However, we can talk about the federal Parent Plus loan. This is also called the Direct Parent Loan for undergraduate students, and it's available from the U.S. Department of Education to help parents pay for their students' education. This loan must be taken out in the parent's name, and you can access the application through the same website as the FAFSA, so studentaid.gov. The amount requested through the PLUS loan can be any amount not exceeding the student's cost of attendance. A good way to know the maximum amount you can request is by subtracting your cost of attendance from all accepted aid. This will include scholarships, grants, and the federal student loans that are accepted. Some final factors to consider when looking into the PLUS loan are interest rates, which will be set in July per the Department of Education, the loan fees that are associated with the loan, repayment schedules, and your credit. Studentaid.gov does have some really good tools for expected repayment schedules, as well as predicting what the loan fees are going to look like. And your credit will be run once you complete the application. And you will receive an approval or a denial once you complete the application. So it's pretty instantaneous. If a parent completes a PLUS application and is denied, there are some additional funds that can be made available to you. These funds are an additional unsubsidized student loan that will be in the student's name. The amounts offered are $4,000 for the academic year for undergraduate students with 60 or less credit hours. Generally, this will be freshmen and sophomore students, and $5,000 for undergraduate students with 61 or more credit hours, so generally junior and senior students. If you are denied the Parent Plus loan, but don't want to accept the denial funds, that's fine. Another option available to parents would be to seek an endorser or to challenge the credit decision, which you would do through the Department of Education studentaid.gov website. And then finally, if you do have any questions, or if you want to sit down with one of our advisors, either in person, on the phone, or over Zoom, you can use the contact information on this screen to reach out to us. We are open 8 a.m. to 4:45 p.m. Monday through Friday, and these are in Central Time. And I think that's it. Thanks, Kim.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We appreciate you being here and all this great information. My one question would be for families who have already done the FAFSA, is there anything that they need to do before they come to orientation, or their student needs to do financial aid wise before they come to orientation, or at orientation, or post orientation?
Sure. So if you have already gone in and accepted your award offer, I would say your next step is to ensure you've completed the master promissory note for the loan and the entrance loan counseling. All first-time lenders, or I'm sorry, all first-time borrowers are required to do these steps, and they can be completed on studentaid.gov. You'll log in as the student and then complete both those steps. Those are usually the final two sort of options for us. If you haven't accepted the loan offer, if it's still out at offered, I would say if if you're sort of on the fence about taking the loans, pop into our office and, come talk to one of our advisors and ask any questions that you may have, interest rates, sort of remaining costs, that kind of stuff. If you haven't received your award offer yet, I would urge you to double check your Students My Bama account. All outstanding verification requirements will be linked in your Students My Bama account under the Student tab, or give us a call and we'll take a look for you guys and get the information that we need to get to you.
Great. Is there in order to make sure that your student gets their financial aid dispersed at the exact, when as early as possible for fall tuition purposes, is there a deadline to make sure that everything is accepted, signed, the counseling done, all of those things?
So generally for fall, one important thing to note with the federal aid is it will not fully disperse until the remaining cost is covered on the student's bill. So if you do have remaining cost, if you've received the $5,500 in the loans, if you have scholarships, grants, anything else, once those have applied to the bill, if there is a remaining cost, your federal loans will sit sort of out in limbo until that remaining cost is covered. So I would say, ensure that you've got whatever your additional payment is going to be, either with the payment plans through student account services, or if you have additional loans that you're going to have come through, go ahead and have those ready to go by early July. Once bills drop about mid-July, you can get them in, but our processing times do skyrocket pretty drastically. For plus and private loans, processing can, in normal times, is 10 to 14 business days from start to finish. Once we hit bill pay, it can go upwards of a month. So if you are going to do an additional loan option, I would say have that plan ready to go by July, just to ensure, that we've got everything lined up in time for disbursement in August. Another thing to note is disbursement for the loans will happen 6 days before classes begin, but often the bill is due before that. So what we do is we authorize the student's aid to their account. So we confirm these funds are here and they're coming. They're just not ready to disperse quite yet. And then at that point, student account services says, okay, great, this bill is covered. They confirm the student schedule. And then there's nothing else you have to do at this point until the funds disperse. But I think, July, especially for sort of having whatever your payment situation is going to be, have that ready to go by July. That way you've got the entire month of July. If anything comes up, you've got that whole month to, sort of get functioning and processing.
Brilliant. And I think that authorized piece, the 6 days before classes start, while bills are already due, I think that's the piece that is most confusing to me. And so I appreciate that explanation so that families don't feel like they need to pay a bill or a balance in order to confirm in the between the time that bills are due and aid dispersed. So thank you for going over that very specifically. I appreciate it. I appreciate all of your amazing information. By all means, if you have any questions for our parents and family members who are watching, financial aid staff are amazing. They are happy to answer any of your questions. So please use this contact information. And again, Erin, thanks so much for your time and expertise.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. And roll tide. We hope to see you this summer at orientation.
Yeah, roll tide.